today's round of things. Yeah. All right, so second to last class meeting. We are officially, I guess, in fake spring with another wave of snow for Ray. That's awful. That
Sulfur or whatever it is.
oh, the folks kind of feel yeah. I think the 6 more weeks of winter. Yeah.
Spring off.
Yeah. So not in real spring, but thank you all for making it here despite the weather. So this day 2 presentations. Friday is the last day. Just as a reminder, we don't have a formal class meeting for the final exam period. That will just be a chance for you to finish the remaining things. Week 9 quiz and extra credit opportunity are due on the 19th, along with any remaining makeup assignments you need to do for classes that you've missed. Just get that to me by the end of the 19th, so I can submit grades on the 20th. So we have 7 folks scheduled. Unfortunately, Haley can't make it for today, so we'll just continue to go down the line for Francis today, Trevor, Kate, Justin, and Sadie. As a reminder, for those of you that are presenting today, first of all, I'm going to, again, keep time to help you keep track of where you're going. 2 up here means that you have used 4 minutes and you have 2 minutes remaining. 1 means that you have 1 minute remaining. I'll use a fist to indicate that you're at time, and I'll let you finish up your thought or idea. Remember, if you're in that 5 to 6 range, that's the ideal minutes for this presentation. Again, I think folks did a great job of listening and paying attention. 2 folks presenting, thanks for doing that. Continue to do so. And then I've been able to pull up the slides with visual aids that I've received so far. Remember, for attendance, if you're presenting today, you're just doing your presentation, that counts as attendance credit. If you are not presenting today, I'm again going to ask you for your attendance prompt to just note 2 of the presentations, write and type or send an email to me about the group that the person observed, what stood out to you about the presentation, and how the observations connected to the course. You might just take some notes on this, write or type as you're listening to the presentations. So that's how I'll be taking attendance for today. Any questions before we start on this round of presentations? Great. So since we do not have Haley for today, Francis will be our first presenter. Again, 5 to 6 minutes, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to come in and to share your work. So, all set, good to go. So, Francis, whenever you're ready.
So hi everyone, this is my small group observation presentation, and the group I observed was the Skoya Club. It's one of the oldest clubs on campus, and their mission is to raise awareness, educate, and promote the culture of Native American people by working with other clubs and organizations on campus and organizing events that promote diversity. This meeting consisted of the club officers, the president, vice president, and the secretary, along with their club advisors. It took place in the Hope Union building, so it was face-to-face last Monday at 6 p.m. and it lasted about an hour. Although one officer couldn't make it or couldn't physically be there, they were able to include him to a phone call. Why this meeting? I wanted to see what some of the type of things that the Skoya Club does. Meeting organization. So there was no formal agenda prepared, but the president did have at the top of her head a list of the items that they needed to discuss, and the officers had an idea of that too, so they just started with the first agenda item and they went down the list. The meeting mostly consisted of planning for an event with a little brainstorming and decision making, and it was more on the informal side where there was like a back and forth type of conversation, and everyone just chimed in whenever they had something to say. They work collectively as a group. Judging by the accountability of the group, they seem to be past the forming and storming stage and well into the performing stage of group communication. And it was clear that all members had good relationships with one another. leadership and management. So I noticed that the president had a democratic type of leadership in which she helped guide the meeting and had an openness to everyone's perspectives. She also had a participatory type of leadership in which she was an active member of the group and contributed her ideas. One of the leadership traits I noticed she had was group emphasis, which is basically the idea of bringing the group back to the discussion whenever they get off track. So what I learned, one of the things I found to be interesting was how they revisit a topic that they felt stuck on and were unsure of. And so they covered everything else and then they went back to that topic, giving them time to think. Another thing I noticed was that cultural norms of a group can vary depending on how well the group members know each other. So with this Goya Club officers, it seemed that everyone was familiar with one another and it created a comfortable and informal meeting structure. And with this, it seemed that there was also like less stress and pressure. And lastly, I learned how easily a meeting can flow when it's a small group who are familiar with one another and familiar with the way they do things. So they went right into accomplishing whatever they needed to.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. And I think there are some really good insights you have here about the group pod and membership, right? One kind of interesting thing that I've seen from presentations so far is when you're coming in, you're kind of an invader, right? Like you're observing this group, you're seeing the dynamics and behaviors that this group is doing, but clearly people know each other pretty well. They're comfortable with each other. It's kind of like this outsider jumping into the group, right? And so it's interesting to sort of acknowledge and engage with the level of comfort and familiarity that group members have and how kind of your role as an outsider helps you to understand what's going on and what you notice is good communication with this group, right? Outsiders are noticing that a group is working together well, then that says a lot for the dynamic interpersonal communication there. I also like the way that we hit on informality, right? The idea that as group members feel more comfortable, you have folks like officers who are actively participating and being included in the process, that oftentimes these groups are less formal, right? People understand how they speak and engage with one another in a way that seems to flow a lot more naturally than otherwise. So I really enjoyed your observations here. I thought that you did a great job talking about this group and some of the key things to note. All right, so next up, we have Meg. Meg, whenever you're ready, welcome to get us started. Oh, and can we do a round of applause for Francis? Okay.
This is my small group observation presentation. So the club that I went to and observed was the Entrepreneurship Club. The Entrepreneurship Club is a new club this year. They started up right before Thanksgiving. And this club is at the stage of like starting up and getting heard about and just like getting out there. And the club's purpose is to build leadership skills and provide opportunities for students to connect within agriculture and entrepreneurship. So the club I attended was on March 2nd and was held in Zagel room 204 on Wednesday at 6 p.m. And there was a clear agenda written on the whiteboard. And it included coffee hour, social media, speakers, recruiting, promotional items, club logo, and spring meetings. And the officers were the ones that like addressed the topics and then they just discussed them. There were leadership roles within the club as well. And so there's 6 members present at that meeting and 4 of them were officers. They had 2 presidents, a secretary, and a treasurer. And the 2 presidents took turns like discussing the items, and they were up at the front of the classroom by the whiteboard discussing. And then they would open it up for the rest of the club to like brainstorm and come up with ideas, and then the secretary would make note of like what was decided. two leadership styles that were present within the meeting were democratic leadership and functional leadership. Democratic leadership was seen as the leaders shared topics with the members, and the members helped make decisions. The officers presented the ideas and opened up the floor for discussion. And then also functional leadership, the members addressed needs that helped the group achieve its goals. The group had goals to discuss all the items on the agenda, which they achieved. And another goal that the group had was like recruiting and getting like heard out, getting the club heard about. And a way they decided to do this was post on social media and get their social media up and going, so their public be heard about. Overall, the meeting was pretty effective. They had a list of items on the agenda and they discussed each thoroughly, as well as once they discussed all the items, they adjourned the meeting right away. They didn't make it last longer than they needed to. And also all the members were very welcoming to the guests, because there's a few of us that went to that meeting and they had us introduce ourselves and they made us feel like right in. And what I learned from attending this meeting was how effective a small officer team can be, as well as like how a new group starts up. And that's it.
Great, thanks so much, Rick. It's interesting because, having had multiple folks observe the Agropreneur Club, I think it's really cool to just see people like looking at clubs and activities that they're interested in and to learn more about. And I think it's really cool to have people do just that work to scout and learn a little bit more. I really like the way that we're talking about sort of the democratic and functional leadership styles, and also the way that they were using sort of introduction to help everybody feel welcome and feel included in the process. So I thought you did a great job here connecting that well to the course to explain sort of the dynamics of membership and also how the leadership style made sense when you had a sort of new organization, right? Naturally, when an organization first starts, there's going to be a lot more of the formal leadership and maybe some direction with the potential for things to get a little bit less formal over time. So I thought you did a good job here describing some of the dynamics and behavior of the group as a whole. So thanks so much for doing this. All right. So moving down the line, looks like we have Trevor next.
I did
And
send it to you.
what's that?
I sent it to you on campus.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. I'll go ahead and pull that up for you.
I want to hear your broadcast.
Oh, right. So I don't think I got one of those. I'll try this one.
Okay.
How today?
Yeah, it literally is.
Oh, perfect. All right, good.
All right, so like you said, outfitting, I did my small group observation over a small Zoom group with help from the Trevor Project. So what is it? They're a small group of around 7 to 8 guys. There are new members every few weeks, but there are 3 people who are full-time members, 2 seniors and a counselor with the Trevor Project. All these are guys, a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and they're all high school students. All their meetings are over Zoom. They meet on Wednesdays. That's I think it was 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, so it's for an hour. And I selected this meeting because a group of these kids who are here are all braver than I was when I was in high school, and I wanted to hear their stories and their experiences. So the leadership is led by 2 people. So like I said, one of the seniors who founded it and the counselor. So the counselor follows a functional leadership, and he's a functional leader because he can provide professional training that focuses on behavior that addresses the needs of the group to help achieve its goals. And then the leader from the student is delegating because he participates in the group by developing relationships and empowering members to speak freely and be able to tell their stories. So the goals of the meeting, so kind of more or less how the meeting gets run down. So everyone turns on the cameras when it comes to 7 o'clock sharp. Everyone introduces themselves by their name and what they identify as. I was introduced to the group as a observer, so I was just doing my thing, typing. They start with a weekly check-in, so everyone gets a chance to speak for about a minute or 2 minutes to discuss topics that happened this last week to them or anything else. They discuss any new news, and the news they talked about this week was the legislation in Florida that just passed of the parental rights in education, or the Florida's Don't Say Gay bill in elementary schools. Any new members share their coming out story or their feeling towards coming out. The goal of each of these meetings is to get that person more confident and to come out whenever they're ready. Members share any concerns they have, and this is where the counselor is able to offer his input and a possible solution. So this is where your problem solving takes place, that teenagers and kids are just not able to provide help for that a trained counselor and trained professional can. And then their meetings are adjourned for the next week. So my observation, everyone got a chance to speak about what they were feeling and what they've done to help them, or if they told anybody else. It kind of is a way for them to get more confidence and then to get approval from somebody else. There was a new member joining for the first time. He was a freshman. We're getting him Connor. And his story was that he was recently outed at his high school by his then girlfriend. And this was the first time he was able to talk to somebody he trusted about his sexuality. And he's lost a couple of friends too, but he was feeling optimistic that he would make better friends and more lifelong friends who accepted him. And so this is when everyone got a chance to brainstorm. So they went around the room and gave them their advice because everyone has had similar experiences to him. What I learned that these kids are becoming more confident in who they are at a younger age, or there's not really much hiding anymore. Everyone's kind of out and open and they're willing to show who they are. And honestly, these kids care about each other. They know the pain and the suffering that each person has gone through. So they don't want anyone to ever be alone. So everyone stays in contact. Everyone shares phone numbers and emails so that they have someone to rely on. So it's almost like a buddy system in a way. And this group cares about the well-being of each other, and they look to add new members every single week, whether that's freshmen or seniors, or even a college student who's just observing it. They want more people to understand and show what the community is about and how they want to help people.
Thank you so much, Trevor. This is, of course, an incredibly important group in terms of its membership, in terms of the tasks and things that it does. And I think you hit on some really important points here that I don't know we've discussed quite as much regarding, what small groups can do and what sort of clubs and activities can do for people, right? I really like your observations here that there's this way that new members share their coming out stories or experience of how they feel about coming out, because like that is such a great way to help people sort of practice, to learn, to develop those kind of skills within a community of people that might be like-minded, that might be safe, that might be comfortable to talk to, such that, when you're getting outside of that and having to figure out how to come out and share, or choosing whether or not to do so, right? That you sort of feel like you built the skills or the connections to help you to do so more comfortably. I also like the way we're speaking to things like specialized experience, right? That there are, these collections of people like high school students who, are all kind of within LGBTQ+ umbrella and all sort of have some level of shared expertise or understanding, even though they experience it personally in different ways, right? That kind of shared expertise helps to advise and guide people, including new members. So there's some really, I think, important observations here. I really appreciate you sharing this group and the importance of this group for the populations that you've identified. And I think you've done a great job of sort of applying that to some of the specialized knowledge and skills that you can gain through participation in small groups. So really good job in talking about this group and some of the ways that it's able to reach the populations that it cares about. All right. So we'll continue to move on down the line. So Kate is our next presenter. Also gonna share that again. No, that's all right. We'll just get it all set for you. So I think it just, yeah. Don't worry, you still get a gold star. There you go. Okay, that look good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm also going to hijack. Right. Whenever you're ready. Yeah, the touchpad is a little bit.
Okay.
Right, there you go. Perfect.
All right, so this is my small group assessment presentation. I chose EOU's art club, and I chose this group because I am not an artistic person, but I really love watching art being made. It's really fascinating to me, and I just wanted to learn more about that. And then it also helped that I knew someone who attended meetings pretty regularly. So the point of EOU's art club is to get art passionate individuals together and teach them about all different types of techniques to do art, and then as well as teach them different types of art from ceramics to photography, to painting, and then on their website or on their page at EOU, it also said things like dancing and writing, which I thought was really interesting. So the meeting that I observed met in LOSO room 111 on last Friday, and it lasted from 3 to 5 p.m., which was pretty late, but I understood because according to one of the officers, a lot of the art students, art majors and minors don't have art classes on Fridays, and the time gives them the chance to finish their other classes. And then it was open to anyone, so while they did have 3 officers and 1 active member, there were quite a few other people there, and yeah. Okay. So the meeting itself started off with quick explanations of what the club was doing and why they were doing that. And what they were doing was wheel throwing, which that was their promotion for wheel throwing. And then why they were doing this was to make pottery for an upcoming couples painting event, which I thought was really cool and individual. So obviously they brainstormed and planned that in meetings prior. And for this meeting, it was pretty much just, here's how you throw pottery on the wheel, get to it, have fun. And from my observations, I would say that the officers had more of a deck plate leadership style. And I say this because everyone kind of worked on their own for today with very little instruction as to what they were doing. And then the officers themselves just kind of went with the group, and then they helped out where they were needed, like filling up more water, or if someone got stuck, they explained it. And then for very similar reasons, I would say that it was organized in a fairly anarchist way, because it was pretty much a free-for-all, everyone do what they want, make their pottery to look how they want it. There was really no true rules there. And so what did I learn from this experience? So while this style of leadership is definitely not ideal for communication and teamwork, it works for what EOU's art club is. And according to one of the officers, there have been no issues internally, and therefore the club works in terms of their communication and leadership styles. It is very unstructured, but in an organized chaos kind of way, which I felt was really cool and kind of gives the vibe of art in general, which again, I just really love. And then I think that as the club grows and it gets more full-time members, their leadership and organization style will have to change because
because while it may work for 4 people, when it gets up to that 10, 12 people range, they're going to have more communication and there's going to be drama within the group.
And that was the presentation.
All right, thanks so much, Kate. I really enjoyed when you were talking about the UU Art Club. The way that you talked about it's kind of like anarchist or free-flowing structure that makes sense for the group. People are off doing pottery, they're painting, they're doing all of these tasks and things, and it makes sense. It's a very activity-focused dynamic. And so I like that we're kind of applying that to what the group does and explaining how that makes sense. And also kind of gesturing to how there were more members, right? The potential for drama and disagreement, that there might need to be more kind of formality and structure. I think one through line I'm noticing in what you all have shared, right, is that the level of formality of organization groups is really closely connected to the number of members. That it be a lot less formal, more free-flowing sort of group membership among smaller groups of people just get to know each other, talk to each other. But we need more of those guardrails in place as groups get bigger. And so it's definitely an important consideration, right? If you're in a small group with people that are generally on the same page, know each other pretty well, you're not going to put in a ton of formal rules if people are working well. But the more people you throw in the room, right, I think the more you need those things in place. So really great job of connecting things to the course and I think helping us to learn a little bit more about the Art Club and what they do. So awesome job. All right. So next up, we have Justin. I'll go ahead and have a full screen so that. Oh, yeah, so I'm just gonna pull it back up on Canvas just because it like sometimes does a thing where it won't let me do the presentation mode unless they reopen it. Okay. All right.
So I did my small group meeting project on the Baker baseball coaches meeting, and for all of you that don't know, Baker is like 45 minutes that way. That's where I spent most of the time of my life growing up. And setting took place inside the indoor cages. It's just because they had to look over a bunch of equipment, such as like, do we need to replace a bunch of balls next year? Do we need to get new nets for the cages, things like that. And they also have a nice coaches office upstairs. Took place on the 1st of March and it started at 6. They all agreed upon starting the meeting at that time. It just worked best for everybody. There were 3 coaches present, the varsity head coach, which is Tim Smith, and then the 2 JV coaches, which would be Clay Phillips and Barry Spooner. And then I selected this meeting because I played for these guys and I really enjoyed my time there. And I just wanted to see how they ran things. And the meeting began with an agenda being handed out. And I like that they did this because it made it very organized and very structured. And the main point of the agenda was to focus on the problems that need solving, which would be which returning JV players would be going to the varsity level. They lost a couple of varsity players just for graduation, so they had to fill in those spots. They also needed to figure out a schedule for who would be using the cages at what time. There's only like a few cages inside the indoor facility and can't really be outside right now, as you can tell. So they have to schedule for that. And then again, they needed to look over what equipment needed to be replaced. During the meeting, they actually ended up running a little over the scheduled time, but they they decided to vote to extend the meeting, which I thought was kind of cool. The group goals, the JV and, the JV coaches, so they just served as kind of basic members. They brought information like these are the stats, the players from the previous year, and they brought that to the main coach and the varsity coach. He ran the meeting. And he just kind of guided it. He wanted to hear each of his members' opinions. So that would be kind of like a democratic system. You know, everyone's voice was equally used, but we did have a leader that was, kind of in charge guiding the meeting. And they used the voting system to determine if like the meeting should be extended and like how which players would be going to the varsity level. And then they also wanted to use unanimous voting just because the group was so small. I would say it was pretty well organized. Everyone showed up, a few minutes early, got to talk, This is a group of men that really close to each other. They've known each other for a really long time. And everybody brought something with them. So the JV coaches brought stats from the previous years, and the varsity coach brought up, like, hey, this might be a couple of things we need to replace. What do you guys think? And some of the things I learned is that an agenda can be very helpful to keep it meeting well organized, track, and just keep the time managed. Welcoming environment. If everybody feels welcome to something, then everybody can come together and meet a specific goal. So for them, it'd be like, how do we get the varsity team to the playoffs? The voting system, we used to solve problems quickly. The quicker you can solve a problem, the more stuff you can get done. I think that extending the meeting time is fine if everyone agrees on it and it works better for everyone to extend it rather than schedule another meeting. And then the organization and use of handouts can speed up the meeting process. And that's my.
All right, thank you, Justin. I thought you did a really good job here of talking about Baker baseball team. I thought that the way that you described, for instance, how the group extends out its meeting when there's this unanimous agreement in voting is such a smart way to do that, because I feel like a lot of us have been in meetings or classes or situations where like it's going past time and we have places we need to be and things to do. And having it be that we're at time, hey, can we agree to extend things out or invite people to meet it really early to do so? It's such a great way to resolve that and resolve a lot of those anxieties. I really like how we were talking about how the benefits of things like an agenda and like structure sort of in practice, right, help groups to be organized and help them to do the things that they need. Like we talked a lot about in this class, how group meetings, agenda, and so on be useful. I think it's really great to actually see that in action, see some of the benefits that we have there. So really good work, really great way of applying and connecting these key ideas. All right, so Sadie is our final presentation of the day. So I will go ahead and get all of your stuff pulled up. Okay, go ahead and screen share. Yeah, so one sec. So, and click right here, or you can use the arrows. Here. And delivery ready.
Okay, so this is my small group observation presentation. I did a book club outside of ENU. It's one of my friends, she came up with it about a year ago. And the meetings are every Thursday around 5 p.m. at the local face-to-face. Sometimes these meetings are different days, it just depends on everyone's schedule. There are 6 people in attendance, all girls. They're open to other people joining, but they don't really advertise it. It was not a tight meeting at all, but more laid back. There's one leader, it's my friend who started the club, and I said she's a transformational leader because she's very motivational and she just looks to get people, members to their best. She made sure that there's always a positive environment when I was there. Everyone is smiling, everyone seemed to enjoy their time. She guides more than forces tasks. I said this because when they talk about what they're gonna do for the next meeting, she kind of guides it and then sees how the members feel about it instead of forcing it, and then they figure out a way for everyone to enjoy it. At the beginning of each meeting, they begin with something positive. They each said something that they were grateful for that day. And then I liked how people didn't talk over each other. If people had something to say, they would wait for other people to finish up their thoughts. And then she made sure that everyone read to the same point. If you don't read to the same point of the book, then you usually don't go to the meeting. Then they discussed what was read, and then after they discussed all that, they decided what point they were going to read in the book next. And then what I learned from this club was how welcoming and open to new people they were. They were all super nice and welcoming when I went. And then I said organized, effective, and positive, because although they did get all their tasks done, they did it in a fun, positive way. Then I said family environment because they all seemed like super close, even though there was a girl who just joined the week before. It looked like she had been there the whole time. And then different ways of communicating. I said this because theirs was super laid back, but like other meetings are more strict and uptight. And then the leader of the group, did a good job of motivating members and keeping them engaged and excited to come every week. I talked to some of the members of the group, and they talked about how they look forward to coming to these meetings every week. That's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that in talking about this book club, right, I think that you're hitting on a lot of unique components of small group communication, right, particularly when it comes to how something like a transformational leader and a well-structured meeting can sort of sink or swim these kinds of meetings, right? And then a book club, you want good conversation, you want good engagement and participation. And you need to create that kind of friendly, welcoming environment as described. And so that's a really big part of effective leadership and management in the group, is making sure that that type of organization is facilitated. And I also really like the ways that you were hitting on some of the ways that group membership is happening, preventing people from talking over each other, sort of setting some ground rules for core communication. So I thought that worked really well in describing this group. Let's do another round of applause for everybody who presented today. We got it, everybody. Is there anybody who was supposed to present today that didn't? Double check it. Okay, cool. So that wraps up things for today. Again, I'm asking for attendance just to email or pass forward two things. There are two presentations where you talk about listed out to you some of the things that you've learned. If you have completed that or emailed that to me, you're good to go. If you still need to wrap that up, you're welcome to do so, and then pass forward or email me once you finish that. Enjoy the snow. It's a little bit sunnier out there right now, so have a great rest of your day. And we will have our final class meeting and final round of presentations on Friday. Thanks so much for all your hard work.
So we had another schedule change.
Okay.
We're supposed to be going to Corbin tomorrow, so I'll be missing Friday, so I'm going just to do the, what they're doing for the attendance. or-
Yeah, if you're able to do that remotely, you can, otherwise we'll have a recording of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,